Hello and welcome to a Robot VARNAC Making Things. Today's project is making your very own footrest. If you spend a lot of time sitting at a desk all day, for example, chances are you need a footrest. But the footrest has to be specially designed so that it works properly to allow blood to circulate in your body through your legs and feet. So when you're sitting at your chair, measure the height of the footrest at the lowest point so your foot just gets elevated off the floor, and so you can feel your leg, your thigh, rise over your chair, so it helps promote good healthy blood circulation. And the upper point is usually about twice the height of the front, so for more foot comfort. So today's project will be made from an old futon. So it'll be recycling old wood. So let's get started. You see that the wide end is 5.5 inches. Another thing about the footrest is it has these 3 slats on here. Each of these is going to be 24 inches long. So to maximize the yield of the materials, set your fence at 7 centimeters. When cutting the pieces of wood with, you might be lucky and have an extra piece of material that you can use for smaller projects. In this case, it's about a 2 millimeter wide piece of material you could use again for smaller projects. But the key thing is you now have 2 pieces, both the same width, and these will be the slats of the footrest. The first thing to do when using the upcycled wood, you'll notice that these pieces have old piece from when they left the furniture factory, so you want to cut off the waste so you have new, good, straight, square pieces to work with when you're cutting. So you want to cut the old glue pieces from the factory, and for that, now remember the slope of the footrest, so about 2 inches and 5.5 inches. And it makes it about 5 inches here and 5 inches on the other side. So this will be side A and this will be side B. next thing to do is to sand the rough edges. You want them to be nice and smooth. You see how they're wavy from the bandsaw, so you want to even that out. See how they're wavy like that, kind of like water. Thing to consider when using recycled wood is to watch for any where it was used in its previous life. You want to eliminate any holes, so like make sure you choose the best side for your work. You don't want to have defects if you can't help it, like choose the best side of your wood. So now you want to lay out the drilling holes for attaching the slats to the sides. So take a ruler and measure 2 inches from the end of each piece, and use a square to mark the line. You probably can't see the lines very good, but they're there. Let's try to make it a little more clear here. So the end of each piece, 2 inches from the end of each piece, you make a mark and use your square to make a line, because you're going to drill 2 holes. You're going to drill 2 holes on each line to attach it to the sides. Now you want to measure from the end of each piece 2 inches. Now you want to space the holes properly. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to show you an old woodworker's secret, where you take your pencil and position your finger, and you just make a line like that. Turn it around and don't move your fingers, and then you have the same measurement there. See how easy that works, folks? That's very convenient. Automatic centering and no complicated measuring at all. You just use your hand to do it. See how it's evenly spaced there, and while still holding your fingers intact. You could also do one end to the other, then spin it around. That's your choice. As long as you don't move your fingers on the pencil, you can draw the same lines on each one. No muss, no fuss, no bother, no complicated gizmo or gadget to mark the lines. You just do it yourself. And there's probably some company out there that's trying to sell you some expensive widget to do this for probably $50 or $100, but you can see how easy it is yourself just by holding your finger on the pencil. Just keep your fingers in place, and now you have 2 evenly spaced holes. Now it's off to the drill press to drill these holes out. Now that all the holes have been drilled for the footrest, you're ready to mount it to the sides. And the easiest way to attach the slats to the sides is to turn them upside down, like so. It's best to start with the top and bottom slat. You don't want to have to go through so much trouble. I mean, some people would be agonizing over the measurements of this thing and driving themselves nuts with the measurements, but it doesn't have to be that complicated, folks. You can just measure it up by eye. But you do want to use a square to help line up the, this is just an example here, for the bottom slat, for example, to line up how they're going to appear. So you know how the spacing of the slats, you're only getting the spacing here. You're not actually making any screw holes or marking for screws. You just want to measure for position. So you want a top and bottom slat to be mounted easily here. And then position the slats so they look visually even. You don't, like I said, you don't want to agonize and drive yourself nuts trying to go crazy for a 1/16 of an inch or a millimeter. So now when you get the position right, take and you have it square there. On one, you only need to do it on one. Mark the position of the slat on the side there, where the slat, and now you have it on one. You can transfer to the other. See the marks, folks? You just carry it right over. No agonizing measurements and driving yourself crazy. So this will be slat 1, slat 2, slat 3, and slat 4. So these voids in the middle will be the spacing. So if you're a perfectionist, you could add up the total of all the slats onto the area here and divide that by 4 and then divide the extra amount. But I'm not going to go drive myself crazy doing that. I'm just going to do it the quick, simple, the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, and just get it done. That's the robot VARNAC way. Get it done and be done with it, so you don't have to go drive yourself crazy with it. Use your square and line up where the slats will go. You'll have your top slat here, one of the lower slats, it also depends on the individual using the slat. Maybe they want to have more spacing on the upper areas instead of the lower. So if you're making this for someone, you might want to take that in consideration. And as for the pencil marks, I'm not going to agonize about the pencil marks either. You use a good art gum eraser, it takes the pencil marks off raw wood just fine. So one slat here, one slat here, one slat there, so a total of 4 slats. Yes, folks, there's a little unevenness, but like I said, I'm not going to drive myself nuts trying to figure that out. I'm just going to mount the slats to the thing. Now, using the pencil method again, you can make your center line down the slat to make your marking holes to drill your holes to mount the slats. See how easy that is? So now you got your layout lines, and now it's drill the pilot holes for the screws to mount the slats. So once you get it roughly lined up, roughly line it up in place, using the center line to help you measure, keep it in place. Use your handy power driver and just screw it right in and get it over with. Working your way from the top down, preferably. Again, lining up the screw holes with your reference line here. You want to visually line it up there and get the line in place. Don't forget, is this going to be sitting under a desk? It's not going to be that seen, and you want the screws to be shown. You don't want to hide the screws under plugs or anything. With the footrest, it's going to get a lot of wear, so you want to be able to get to the screws to adjust them. So don't put caps on the screws. You want to have the screws open, because with use the screws will get loose and have to be tightened again. Select number 2, again using your reference lines to line it up. And you reference your lines, keep everything lined up. See how fast it is, folks? Almost done. It's almost finished already, right before your very eyes. It's almost done with no fuss, no muss, no bother, no crazy complicated measurements or agonizing measurements that would drive you nuts. That's the robot VARNAC way. Keep it simple. Now the last slat is going to be a problem. As you see, the wood gets thinner, so you don't want to use real long screws that would go through the wood. You want to use a shorter, more itty-bitty screw so it won't split the wood. And there it is, folks, the footrest. Here are some tips, useful tips for finishing the footrest. So before you begin, take some time and put 4 screws into, these are temporary, to hold it off the surface when you're finishing it. So just lightly drive 4 screws in each of the corners to hold it up while the finish dries. It's kind of like what a factory does when they're finishing goods and commercially. If there's old holes in the thing from a previous use, go ahead and use those old holes. Just enough to hold it up. Make sure you remove all the sawdust from sanding and everything off the footrest. Check to make sure it's square, make sure everything's okay. Stand it up and make sure it sits okay. Get any sawdust off of there. Remove the pencil marks if you so choose. The trick to finishing the footrest is you do the bottom first, because once it's standing up, you could do the top. The top being seen, you want the top to be more important. When mixing a stain, you want to make sure you don't want to do it too quickly because you'll get air bubbles in the finish, so stir it nice and slowly. You might feel some sticky residue at the bottom of the can, so you want to make sure you work the sediment at the bottom of the can to stir it all up. And you'll see the stain slowly changing color as you mix it up. But don't go too fast. You don't want to get air bubbles in the finish. That's good enough. You want to work the stain into the wood. Do the inside slats first. You want to be able to turn it over, so don't put the stain on the outside edges yet. You want to be able to turn it over. You're just getting the very bottom of it right now. Just a quick reminder, folks, that that's public domain music playing in the background. It's over 100 years old and it's public domain. You can check it out and see for yourself if you're checking the music. You'll get the upper edges when it's turned right side up, so you're just getting the bottom edges on the bottom for right now to cover the bottom. And try to remove any brush strokes, and if you're using a cheap brush like this from China, you'll probably have the bristle brushes, the hairs getting stuck in the oily finish. Again, you're only doing the inside finishes. If the outer edges will be done once it's turned right side up. Once it's turned up right side up, you don't want to have to bother with the bottom surfaces. With good practice, even painting by hand is quick and simple. There'd be some people who would try to say you have to buy a HVLP, spray this or spray that gun to do a simple little project like this. But a quick, simple little brush, so you could see how quickly it's progressing with no muss, no fuss, no bother. Give this stained finish some time to soak into the wood. Check for any runs. Like I said before, runs are good in baseball, but not in finishes. So it looks okay. It's ready to be turned over. You even get it in the screw holes. You want the finish to soak into the holes, even the screw holes after you countersunk the screws in there. Preferably the best finish for the footrest is an outdoor deck stain, so it takes wear and tear easily. Once you turn it upside down, you have access to all the other edges and surfaces on the upper side, so you can keep a better eye on the upper surfaces. Don't forget to get lots of finish in the end grain. The end grain is going to soak up the finish really good, so you want to make sure you put more finish on the end grain. It's also a good idea is to have a little inspection mirror while you're working, so you don't have to crane your neck and retch your neck looking at the other surfaces. You could use a little mirror and check the undersides and other surfaces for good finishing. I prefer to work from one side to the other so you could see all the surfaces that you're working on at one time. Then you get to the other side and you could reverse and get to do the other side. Good long brush strokes to get the good finish in there and get it soaked into the wood real good. And of course, don't forget the end grain of each slat has a little end grain on both sides, so you want to make sure you get all the end grain on both sides. Yeah, so make sure you get all the countersunk holes. You want to get the finish in there too. And so make sure you get the piece end grain on each and every slat. You don't want to miss the end grain that soaks up the most. You're going to keep coming to the end grain until it soaks up a lot of the finish. Now you could paint these sides, since it's not going to be moved again until it's dried. You could paint these sides, finish the sides, whatever you want to call it. I call it painting or slopping the finish on here. It's only a footrest. It's going to take a lot of wear and tear. It's not like a fine French highboy or something fancy like that. It's just an ordinary cheap footrest, so you don't want to agonize and drive yourself crazy making this thing. I know some people say if you're going to do a job, do it right and all that, but you're better off spending your time on something more, where your time is more important and useful, instead of something low quality or low time consuming like this. You could use your time for better something and allocate your shop time for more important things, so you can get cheap low priority projects like this out of the way, so you have more shop time to use for better projects. So you want to be able to allocate your shop time. Shop time is very important. Even if you have a home shop, you have overhead to pay for your shop. Electric, utility bills, stuff like that. You might even be paying a higher insurance premium for a home shop too. You might figure home insurance could have more accidents to it, so you have to factor all the costs into your shop to allocate your shop time wisely. And of course, return to the end grain that's been soaking up the finish. Get this finished good and slopped down there so it soaks in, and you can come back to it later and gently brush it off and smooth it in place so it looks nice. I'll come back and get the end grain. You want to give it another once over to make sure it's all the finish looks as even as possible. Take out any runs that you see. And you'll notice the back end has more room, so you can get your hand in there and check for any runs and get the runs out before the finish dries. And if you see a good run, you could dab the brush on the cardboard so when you put the brush on the run, it'll soak up the finish and get it off the wood. And by the same token, if you see a spot that needs more finish, you can come back to where you left the finish and take more of the finish and put it back on the wood. So you just want to make sure, spend some time with the project and make sure there's no runs. So when you leave, you could confidently leave and say it'd be run free when you leave it to dry. Of course, this is a one-step finish. If you're really particular, you can come back to it and give it another coat, depending on how good a finish you want. Check the intersections of the slats and the sides for any runs, especially where it'll be visible. Of course, these finishing steps can be used on any project. So I guess that's it for now. You see how the footrest will be finished, so don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. Let us know what other woodworking projects you would like to see, and let us know what you think if you built the footrest and how it worked for you. So this is the end for now. See you next time. Goodbye.